I'm Tim Kittro, and here to bring home the bacon are Big Ryan, the fat guy.
Well, thanks for coming down to my level, fat guy. This is the NFL Picks Against the Spread for Week 3 for the 22-23 NFL season.
Corny.
Fat guy, we are 22-10, good for 69%
Right.
in the first 2 weeks. On to the Thursday game, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. Browns -4 at home. 39% of early bettors are on the Browns for Thursday night. Fat guy, who you got?
Okay, so this did get moved to Cleveland -5. This is an opening line. We're obviously going to take Cleveland -4 in the contest. Interesting movement. Interesting open, Big Ryan. I wouldn't thought 4 doesn't seem right. Like, I don't know. Just it seems not like the number I would pick.
Pre-lines, like before this week, it was 2.5. So, like,
Yes.
if you bet this week 1, this would have been a 2.5 game at that time. Obviously, Cleveland stock has gone up. Pittsburgh stock has come down, and now we're sitting at 5, even 5.5 at some places with it juiced up for Cleveland. So, getting them at 4 is nice for the contest. You got any other final thoughts on this game?
Yeah, real quick here. Cleveland, is still the Cleveland Browns. I can't believe it. They're actually my favorite team. Unbelievable how you can blow it always. Once a season, they're good for one of those. But we're going to be touching on look-ahead lines a lot during this show, if we can call it a show. Cleveland is the pick. Cleveland -4.
On to the next game. We'll start off with the Sunday early games. Baltimore Ravens at the New England Patriots. Patriots +3 at home. 15% of early bettors are on the Patriots. Fat guy, is this one of those contrarian plays?
It looks like it's going to be Cleveland +3 at home. Or sorry, Cleveland. Browns disaster on the brain. New England Patriots +3 at home. That looks like it's going to be a pure contest play. I think this is kind of solid. I think as far as this could, I mean, maybe it could go down to 2.5. I think it's more likely. I don't think it's ever going to go to 3.5. I think it's just going to be, this is a solid number 3 with juice adjusted at the most. This is just one of those lines that feels like it's solid start to finish. I don't think paying, vig on both sides, you can make money long-term taking either the Ravens or the Patriots. And what I mean by that is you don't think in terms of, I'm going to, this is the team I want. The Ravens, I want the Ravens over the Patriots. Okay, at what price? Are you willing to lay 4 points with the Ravens? There's always going to be an equilibrium for both, for everybody. And that's how the market gets set. If people vote with their dollars, and then a number gets placed right in between, and then they charge a percentage. And now the wisdom of crowds is usually pretty sharp, especially at sharp books. So I think 3, it's going to stay there with just some flexibility in the juice, perhaps. This is purely a contest pick. New England Patriots +3.
On to the next game, which is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs at the Indianapolis Colts. Colts +6.5 at home. 11% of early bettors are on the Colts. Fat guy, there's no way that a look-ahead line would have been Kansas City -6.5 for this at the start of the season. So what are your thoughts on this game?
Well, it wasn't. It was -3.5. And a close friend of mine at a particular shop I didn't have dollars on, I would have done it. He bet just about the maximum on Kansas City -3.5. And these lines were available like during the game, like during the Indy Jacksonville game. That's just a really big flaw. So like what I want to posit out there is if you're able to get action down on the following week's games, especially early in the season, the market is more elastic. Like people's opinions on the Chiefs and Colts are still forming. Whereas if this happened in week 12, you wouldn't have that type of line shift. Like this wouldn't move so swiftly, right? The lines that are set, a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance, they're pretty good. They're inelastic to change, even money, right? Like money's going to do it. It always is, but not as much as in week 2 in the NFL season or week 1, and that's any sport for that matter. But NFL, because the sample is so small, we're playing 18 games a year, 17 games a year. People take the the results and the nuances of single game performance is a lot more to heart. So my friend here, he got it at -3.5 Kansas City. And to put that into perspective, what's the difference between -3.5 and -6.5? If you remove the juice and you go with a no vig line, it's roughly 9.95%, 10%. I know I said roughly, and then I said the longer one. It's roughly 10%. Doesn't even make any sense. So, and then you can go, oh, what's 10%? 10% in a week? Go. Anyone on Wall Street, if you could tell them, loan sharks don't even make that. Trust me. 10% a week. That's enormous. That doesn't mean you're going to win, but that's your expected value. If you make that play 1,000 times, you're probably going to average around 10% gain on Chiefs -3.5 in this exact spot. Of course, I'm using pinnacle lines to infer the expected value. So that being said, look out for stuff like that. Betting at close, I don't like using this term, but it is for suckers. I don't want to call you a sucker. I don't want to think of you as a sucker. That's our listeners. I want you to make better informed decisions, and they take low limits on these look ahead lines because they're ripe for error. And if you could bet, Kansas City -3.5 against Indy during Indy's complete unraveling against Jacksonville, you know what I mean? You don't need a math degree to understand that the line's probably going to shift, against Kansas City, considering how they've played and how Indy's played and the perceptions of those two teams, and perhaps the preseason line where Indy was, not a dark horse, but a contender for sure for the Super Bowl, and they very well still could be. But we're talking about what's going into this line and what those opinions are, and it's pretty clear that it would move in the Chiefs' favor. So this is going to be a contest pick. It's going to be Chiefs +6.5, but I have to say it was available at Chiefs -6.5. It was available at Chiefs -3.5, and that's the type of creativity you need these days to win.
And if you can get Chiefs +6.5, good to you. On to the next game, Detroit at Minnesota. Minnesota -6.5. 30% of early bettors are on the Minnesota Vikings. Fat guy, who you got?
Well, we're going to go with the Minnesota Vikings here. I don't know how I feel about this one. It's, again, a contest pick. I like that it's come under the hook of 7. 5.5 has got to be the good one, the good line. I'm going to consider Minnesota at -5.5. Detroit, on the other hand, though, this is another one of those games. This look-ahead line was Detroit +7.5. So you could also do this too. If you got Detroit +7.5 and it gets down to Minnesota -5.5, you would have a middle over two key numbers. So then what you would do is you would figure out at this over under, what is the likelihood at team A, the Detroit Lions, losing by 6 or 7 points to team B? And is that going to outrun the juice you would pay on winning one and losing one? That's what a middling play would be. Is if you got Minnesota -5.5, and if you got the look-ahead line, Detroit +7.5, and then you could only lose one, win one, pay the juice, or you could win both bets. And then what you do is you figure out is you multiply the juice by the odds it's going to be, and if it's if the payout is greater than what you would pay, then you make that bet. It's just plus EV. So I know I'm getting off track here, but again, we're going to highlight ways to not just bet at close. Think creatively. I shouldn't even be saying this stuff, but it's not like the Golden Goose is going to get killed from this, weekly pick show. I don't think so. Either way, I'm going to go with Minnesota -6.5 in a purely picks contest, but let's keep thinking about look-ahead lines.
On to the next game, Fat Guy, which is the New Orleans Saints traveling to Carolina to take on the Panthers, who are +2.5 point underdogs at home. 55% of early bettors are on Carolina. Fat Guy, who you got?
I kind of like the New Orleans Saints here, and I'm considering with a little bit of a wager. Some shops have it at 3, which makes it too difficult for me. But if you can get down at -2.5, depending on when you view this video, that would be the way to go. So it's going to be New Orleans -2.5. Conversely, I would consider Carolina at like 4. Carolina 3.5 good juice. They'd probably sign me up too. So as far as the 2.5 number is concerned, in real life and in the contest, I do like the New Orleans Saints.
On to the next game, which is Houston at Chicago. Chicago 3-point favorites at home. 30% of early bettors are on the Bears. Fat guy, who you got?
Well, we're going to be taking the the Houston Texans. I felt like saying the Chicago Bears just because I had that 1910 San Fran win stuck in my head. No, Houston Texans, this is going to be the play here. 3 seems to be a nice number. I kind of think it's going to trend down to 2.5 if it hasn't already, Big Rye. I feel like it has.
It's
Bears
2.5, but
2.5.
heavy juice on the Bears. So it's teetering between that 2.5, 3. Either
it's like
way,
a soft 3 for Houston. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is one of those games, too, where like 3 is a pretty solid number. And there's probably a reasonable push frequency on it as well. This is going to be one of the lower OUs of the year, 40. That's about right. We're going to take Houston. It's going to be a contest pick, but I would need like Houston plus 3.5 or like, probably on the money line for Chicago. If I got like minus 118 or better, I would probably take Chicago. So Houston plus the points in the contest, purely a contest pick.
On to the next game, which is going to be Philly at Washington. Washington 3-point dogs at home. 52% of early bettors are on the Washington Commanders. Fat guy, who you got?
Well, if you were watching the game and watching Philadelphia, who I really like their clock management style. After this game, I liked how it was coached. So call me a Philly. I don't know if fan's a weird way of putting it. I'm wearing a authentic Commanders gear here, but this is going to be a contest pick, Philly minus 3, and this line is already moved. And see how elastic it is? I actually think this line could kite up to Philly minus 5.5. 6 is that's a big one. But the number between 3.5 and 5.5, that's very, very fluid, right? Because 4 is not or 5 just not a key number, right? So it's not as giving up that extra, that point in between there isn't as much. But that being said, you still want to, if you can lay less, you lay less. So that being said, I do like Philly at this price minus 3. If you could get minus 3, I think that would be a fantastic bet. But I think I could see this closing at Philly minus 5.5. And if it's Philly at minus 6, that's where we start thinking about taking the Commanders. I think at 6.5, I'd be pretty content to take the Commanders, assuming it wasn't that close. So for the contest, Philadelphia Eagles minus 3 points.
On to the next game, which is going to be the Buffalo Bills traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins, who are 4-point dogs at home. 27% of early bettors are on the Miami Dolphins. Fat guy, who you got?
Buffalo minus 4. Look at that number. I think it's going to go all the way to 7. So I think anything under 7 at good juice, I think that's the play. Buffalo, I like in this strange term. I always talk about this theory. I have a Buffalo. I think they're spread killers. Like, I think it's usually, if you like the other side in a spread, it's worth to take the gamble and bet the other side to win. Just because I think that how they make spread markets and moneyline markets move in a linear fashion. So like the price at minus 4 will have, generally have a money line at like minus 180. Don't quote me on that because I don't have the charts in front of me. We do have them though. But they move linearly. Like they're 1-to-1. Like 4 is considered the same win probability. However, though, this is one where I think it's decoupled, to use a finance term. We're going to use what I mean by that is Buffalo is way more likely to win big or lose the game outright. An example of that, just to use a stupid anecdotal example that may not have anything to do with it, is when they played Jacksonville, would they lose like 13-9 or something? Like they've had a bunch of stinkers, not a bunch. They've had some stinkers. This really good Buffalo team, but there aren't that many close calls with them. They smoke teams. They straight smoke teams. They're the most passing team in the NFL, and I think the most passing team probably the last 10 or 20 years. They pass when they're up. They pass when they're down. They're poor at running the ball. It's a team that's very conducive for blowing leads or perhaps having a calamitous game because they don't really have too many gears. They're like Chuck Norris; they only walk and kill. So I'm gonna in the contest. I'm gonna lay 4 points with the Buffalo Bills. But if you do like an opposing side, consider taking the high variance gamble on the money line of the other side. If you do and lead like that, contest pick Bills -4. I think buy Bills up until -6.5. Good juice, regular juice.
Back on to the next game, which is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to New York to take on the Jets, who are 4-point dogs at home. 16% of early bettors are on the Jets. Fat guy, who you got?
Yeah, well, didn't that tell you about early bettors? You know, the Jets had a ridiculous comeback win against the Browns, classic Browns fashion. Stefanski, I thought it was over. And the Bengals had oh my goodness, did they have a bad performance against the Dallas Cowboys. But, you know, Bengals are still a good team, like fringe playoff team. Much like I had said at the start of the year, that's what they are. And the Jets are still a bad team. This number should creep a little bit. I bet you it closes at Bengals -5, so we'll take the 4. I don't think that would outrun the juice, though. You'd pay on a 4, like getting the extra point. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that would work. So this is purely a contest pick. I think the books will win on either side of this one. It'll be Bengals -4 for the contest.
On to the next game, which is going to be the Raiders traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans in a pick'em game. 53% of early bettors are on Tennessee. Fat guy, who do you like in a pick'em between these two?
Well, I like the Las Vegas Raiders, and I think they're going to close as favorites. There's something brewing here, and I want to confirm it before I say it. At Circa, they have the Titans as 2.5-point favorites at plus money, and you could tease down the Raiders to. Sorry, we're just taking a second here because this is very interesting. Because the Raiders are now 2.5-point favorites at Pinnacle. So, I mean,
that's a huge discrepancy between those two sites,
crazy.
Because usually they are very, very close. So that's a very interesting point.
So this is what we would call a negative synthetic hold. So what that means is, okay, Circa won't let you bet the money line because otherwise you could just take Tennessee plus 115, or Tennessee's at even money. Or no, here we go. Hold on. Tennessee at plus 115 at Pinnacle. And if they had it, technically, if you were to balance it, you'd be plus 115 on Las Vegas. So you could get just, you could bet both sides $100. You're going to make $15 no matter what. However, though, the spread's been monkeyed with a little bit. So this might be a really strange situation where Circa thinks that the juice they're charging isn't equal to the push frequencies on a victory by the Raiders or the Titans within a 1-point margin either way, or 2-point margin rather. So you could do the math there and kind of find out that it is still losing. But isn't that strange? Isn't that interesting? Because there's a bit of a battle.
Very interesting. We don't see that very often, to be honest.
Almost never. And especially because I think Circa's trying to compete for the throne. Circa's an American company. We can't get money down on them. But Big Ryan and I are certainly monitoring their progress, maybe. We don't know what's going on and whether they're in the red or black. But they're taking chances, and it's admirable. Taking on Pinnacle that's tough stuff. So you kind of like it, and it should it should create opportunities to play both books off each other if you were smart and you were inclined. So this is going to be a contest pick. And by the way, I still value the Pinnacle line. I find the Pinnacle closing line to be as close to the truth as you can get. That's why I don't like betting at close. That's why I don't even do it. Maybe as a hedge for a big bet that I received privately that I would, want to offset some of the risk. That's a lot. By the way, that's also a big purpose of Pinnacle. A lot of these offshore books, especially Pinnacle, because Pinnacle has the best prices, is when bookies take big bets and they end up with exposure. So say you have 100 clients and 80 bet on one side, 10 bet on the other. Well, that's just too much to lose on one game. So what they'll do is they'll have a whole bunch of money in a site like Pinnacle, and they'll just bet the other side. And they say they buy the other side at minus 105, yet they're charging minus 110. Easy money right there. It'll their hold is going to be minimized because they're paying retail with Pinnacle, but they're paying minimized retail because it's the lower price. So that is one of the functions of an offshore sports book. So it also is oddly contrarian Pinnacle can be just from a natural market perspective. All that being said, this is just an interesting one. Had to get into it. I know we went long, went on the side. Contest pick Las Vegas Raiders to win the game. Just win, baby.
On to the next game, which is Jacksonville traveling to LA to take on the Chargers, who are 8.5-point favorites at home. 46% of early bettors are on the Chargers. Fat guy, who you got?
Jacksonville plus 8.5. This is one of those things too. Like the injury to Herbert. Can you think of something more important than that? You know what I mean? He couldn't even finish a run at the end of near the end of the game for the Chiefs. Of course, he allowed me to get the backdoor cover, but this line has moved, and this is another line my friend got. He got during the Jacksonville game because he felt that this is right. Sentiments are neutral to tentative on the Chargers, considering the health of Justin Herbert. No one's denying that the Chargers are much better than the Jacksonville Jaguars. How much better, though? And then also the they've got a pretty big bump from the blowout of the Indianapolis, contending in the Indianapolis Colts, well thought to be, as well as they had an okay performance against the Commanders. This is a better Jacksonville team. So this number has now slipped to a lot of places to 7. So this is if you can get 8.5, and you have to think about look aheads. The gap between 7 and 8.5 is pretty big, and you can say, "Oh, a team can still win by a touchdown." Yeah, but you push on one, you win on the other. It's a pretty big deal. And 8 with the 2-point conversion now being more, especially when you have progressive coaches like Brandon Staley. Not that he's shown it this year, and I think Doug Peterson kind of falls in that ilk of progressive. Math forward thinking. You're more likely to see 2-point conversions, and you're more likely to have the number 8 play a role. So that being said, 8.5 is a valuable take if you could get it. I doubt you can get it at the time of this recording without some weird injury news coming out of Jacksonville. But for a contest pick, and if you could have got the look ahead, of course it's easy to say in retrospect, Jacksonville plus 8.5.
Back out of the next one, which is the Green Bay Packers traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the Buccaneers, who are 2.5-point favorites at home. Only 28% of early bettors are on Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. Fat guy, who you got?
I don't know if that's injury stuff. Mike Evans, I believe, got suspended one game. We're going to lay the 2.5. We're going to take the Bucs. I think this should be 3, and I'd be surprised if it doesn't close on 3. It might just hold here and with juice adjusted. Because 3 is kind of you see it a lot, obviously, but the worst thing the book can do for the most part, is to have to refund everybody. And that, Bucks minus 3 is or Bucks by 3 is probably the most likely if you were to graph it. So it's still a contest pick. I still don't love it. We're just not too much fancy here. Bucks minus 2.5.
On to the next one, which is the Atlanta Falcons traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks, who are 2.5-point favorites at home. 59% of early bettors are on Seattle. Fat guy, this is a 5-star entertainment game, but who do you got on the sides?
I like Atlanta. I like the Atlanta money line. You know what I mean? Like they've been in it, and I feel like they can be in it. Seahawks only got on the board with a special teams, but none of that really matters. Like, think about how anecdotal it'll trick you. It even catches me once in a while. Let's talk about this number here. I think that this is going to end up Seattle minus 1. I think that's the most likely thing. So I'll take the extra 2.5, the extra 1.5 points, even though they mean very little in terms of landing on Seattle. It's hard to win by 2. So I just think it's going to close at Seattle minus 1. And I think there'll be closing line value on the Atlanta Falcons. I'll probably bet them in real life. Maybe not. It's not. There's no key number. I can't get it like an edge like I'd want to. I'm just being wishful, right? So we're going to take Atlanta in the contest, and I think there'll be closing line value. Not numerically, but numerically in terms of how the spread came, not in expected value.
Next up, we got the Rams traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals, who are 4-point dogs at home, 50-50 as far as the bet split goes early on in this one. Fat Guy, who you got?
Take Arizona +4. You just said it 50-50. I think it is 50-50. I think the biggest, it could shift to 4.5. I think it shifts to 3.5. I really do. I feel like the most watched game, if I were to guess, and I'm pretty sure it is that opener, Buffalo at Rams. So there's more sour taste in their mouth. And also the Rams haven't covered yet. Whereas Arizona had a fantastic comeback against the Raiders. And those are still anecdotal, plucked out of the air, random probabilities, but they will have effect on sentiments, perhaps. And in regards to the point spread, and I think this could close at 3.5. I'm still never going to bet this, but in a contest when I can get 4 or 3.5, I'm going to take 4. So the contest pick Arizona +4.
Sunday Night Football, Jimmy Garoppolo's San Francisco 49ers travel to Denver to take on Russell Wilson's Broncos, who are 2.5-point favorites at home. 87% of early bettors are on the San Francisco 49ers. Fat Guy, who you got?
I like them. I actually think San Francisco's win probability has gone up. Not that I wish any ill will on a young Trey Lance, but don't you feel that way? You can say what you want about Jimmy G. Jimmy G has won plenty of football game, and it can be ugly. You're allowed to win ugly in this game. You don't have to be Kansas City and just, blow the smoke off everybody, that you in Buffalo. You can win ugly like San Fran does. San Fran has a methodical way of getting downfield. And Jimmy G played pretty poorly last year, and I think that this is there might be some value on him being a little bit underrated. I'm not a Jimmy G fan necessarily. I just think that the market probably underrates him because of his poor performance. And can you remember a time, Big Rye, where the backup quarterback might bring in more value than the starter?
Oh, there's I'm not going to be able to come up with any, but what I'm going to say is Jimmy Garoppolo's 33-14 as a starter in the NFL. There's not very many quarterbacks that sport that type of win percentage, especially in the sample size that he has. It's not bad. That's a reasonable sample. He's been
good enough.
Very good at winning games, and the betting market is reflecting that, because part of that is just Denver hasn't played very well.
That's true too.
San Francisco took an artificial bump between week 2 and week 3, and that's the only thing that's drastically changed. So it's the betting market agrees that it's not something to try to convince people of. People have used their dollars to say who they think is more likely to get San Francisco wins.
Well, then the argument have they bumped him enough, right? So this is one of those things where you have to make that judgment for yourself. And like you said, they did have voted with their dollars. But then I go on this Jimmy G rant, but is that already baked into the line, right? So you have to. So Big Ride makes an interesting discovery here in terms of the bump that in win probability in this singular game that the 49ers got. I wish I had some season totals in front of me, because that would really be the teller, right?
Yeah,
especially what.
And we're talking about the change of half a game, 1 game, 1.2. It's not going to be a huge change.
Yes.
Either way.
What he said, on the lowest game, it'll be half either direction. On the highest, it'll be maybe San Fran's 1 win better off with the games remaining. So it's not monumental, but that does give you an idea of what he means. That's why I always say check the win probability in the money line between a player going out, being out, and their backup coming in. That gap in win probability pretty much tells you what they're worth. So, and we both think the market thinks Jimmy G's worth more. That being said, I think this closes at Denver -1, San Fran +2.5 in the contest.
And on to Monday Night Football, which is between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Football
Undefeated
Giants.
New York Giants. Get it right.
Giants -3 at home, 22% of early bettors. Fat Guy, this game is going to be interesting for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Cooper Rush on the road. The 1-0 20. I don't remember what other games he started, but 1-0 currently. Cooper Rush getting 3 points with Dallas on the road in New York. I think this is one to watch. To be honest, I want to take a closer look at uh, the the new look New York Giants and how they're coached and some of their decision making, because I didn't get a whiff of the Carolina game from just on the ticker. So I'd kind of like to see what has changed decision wise, or is just positive results finally coming Big Blue's way. Either way, we're going to be taking this purely as a contest pick. Dallas +3, and I'm not sure where it's going to close, but we're going to take Dallas +3.
Cooper Rush 2-0 career as a starter.
Whoa!
So he's beating out Jimmy G's.
Also, someone's got to go down.
Yeah. All right, Fat Guy, on to the lightning round. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns.
Cleveland Browns.
Baltimore at New England.
New England Patriots.
Kansas City at Indianapolis.
Kansas City Chiefs.
Detroit Lions at the Minnesota Vikings.
What a good time to take a sip of water. Minnesota Vikings.
Saints Panthers.
Saints.
Texans Bears.
The rangy Texans.
Eagles Commanders.
Eagles.
Bills Dolphins.
Bills.
Bengals Jets.
Bengals.
Raiders Titans.
Watch those markets between Circa and Pinnacle. Raiders.
Jags Chargers.
Jacksonville.
Packers Buccaneers.
Buccaneers.
Falcons Seahawks.
Falcons.
Rams Cardinals.
Cardinals.
San Fran at Denver.
San Fran.
And on Monday night, Dallas at the New York Football Giants.
You gotta prep it better. You gotta titillate a bit better. The undefeated Cooper Rush takes on the undefeated 2022 Big Blue. We'll be taking Cooper Rush and the Dallas Cowboys +3 points in the contest.
5-Star Entertainment. Congratulations for Jones and for Johnson. 11-5. That's a name I can relate with. And the leaderboard for week 2, standing up top, Jones and for Johnson, 11-5. We have a handful of people at 10-6. Fat Guy, you and I, 9-7. Pretty. And on to the overall leaderboard. Fat Guy, we are on top, 22-10 to start this season. 2 games above. Tied for second between Money, Mooney, and Shiv Pick. So congrats to those guys. Shout out to Casone as well, 18-13. The guy is just lives unreal. At 60%. It is unreal.
It is unreal.
And then on to the JS715 name of the week, honorable mentions. Fat Guy, take it from here.
Josh Allen over 1.5 stiff arms. Yeah, Bermuda turf. That's some nice grass. Washington football team for life. I got it all over me. I kind of like the football team name now. Commanders, it's lame. Kickers need a pay cut after week 1. Well, that's what the market bears. I mean, they haven't done so well. Trey ain't the way. Well, it's I guess in God's hands. Sleepless in Seattle, starring Russell Wilson. Not bad. Fat Guy for president of the USA. I wasn't born there, but like Martin Van Buren, I can lead you to victory as a foreigner. Big Rye, are you still a fat guy? He kind of is. He's got this weird, like, little pouch, like a kangaroo.
This is the JS715 name of the week. Whoa, kaboom!
I wonder what Fat Guy's pregnancy weight was. Well, during my wife's pregnancy, I got up to 355 pounds. I'm at 290 right now, but that was pretty ugly.
Make your picks against the spread for week 3 at BigRyanTheFatGuy.com.
I'm
Fat Guy, that's
6'6".
it.
300's not that bad, okay? Yikes.
But this is going to be a good week. There's no big favorites. It looks like the Chargers at 8.5 is the biggest favorite this week. So we are going to have, in theory, some competitive games, which is great.
Yeah, and it's the thing is, these standard spread markets are just really difficult to beat. So I just want to inspire some creativity, look in different ways, be wrong, but have ideas. Picking one side or another isn't the way to go. Pricing and derivatives and creativity. That's the best way to gamble.
So guys, remember, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and good luck for your picks in week 3.